And welcome, YouTube audience. We will be back here in just a moment. We want to give people some time to join the stream. So again, I'll be right back. As these things do take a moment to set up, we have to verify the quality of the stream and so on. So we'll be right back talking about the Twitter files, why Twitter is so vile. All right, so pardon that delay. You may have noticed how putrid the state of affairs is in terms of censorship and so on in the past, I'll say, 6 years. I mean, it didn't become super obvious until about 2016, I'd say. That was when things got so disgusting on social media that many people began unplugging. And of course, we don't blame you if you've unplugged from social media. In fact, in many ways, we encourage you. So we'd prefer for you to watch our content if you are indeed able to find it. So of course, and we are on Twitter. So let's cut to the Twitter page here. Cut to the Twitter page. There we go. So we are on Twitter. Make sure you follow us there if you haven't. And our video has been instantly demonetized. Yes, so this video went straight into limited monetization, which means you may not be able to ever see it because, of course, YouTube prioritizes monetized videos. So why that is, because we had the words Twitter files in the title of the video, or what the reasoning was, we have no idea. But we're going to make the video anyway because we'll request a review while the stream continues. So there we go, requesting a review. So YouTube, hey, check out the video. We'll only be stating facts. We'll be inviting people to join our Twitter page, which I'm pretty sure is still allowed. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people think Twitter is vile. And of course, we thought Twitter was vile too. We only started our account back in March of 2019 because, of course, we consider the platform to be quite pathetic. So anyway, so let's continue on here because we want to talk about some specific stuff. Yeah, specific stuff. And man, there is a huge delay on YouTube. All right, I think we're good. We are good. Now, you are invited to become members of the Smash Team, all right? What are the benefits? Well, some of the benefits are only available to Gold and Silver Smash Team members. However, if you are unable and or unwilling to send us a few bucks per month, you can still become a member of the Smash Team at the bronze level. You'll still receive email alerts and so on. And the post that we put up this morning to the Smash Team was about Twitter being vile. So now, a lot of people seem to think that censorship is somehow magically fixed on the internet, and that's not a thing. Definitely not fixed. And of course, we put up something there just for our, and we're going to actually view this via Zero Hedge because that's where we initially saw it. So zerohedge.com. Popular for having been banned a few times from Twitter. And let's talk about, let's put our test pattern up there because we're going to talk about the vile Twitter files. Because Twitter has been a truly disgusting platform over the past 6 years. And frankly, it hasn't improved very much. So while certain accounts have been brought back to the platform, other accounts are now banned, I guess. I don't even know. I really can't keep track of it because it's so putrid. I refuse to expose myself to too much about it. And what, did they pull the article now? The article was right on the homepage this morning. Maybe they've posted a lot of stuff. Okay, so here we go. It's titled Mapping Out All the Key Revelations from the Twitter Files So Far. And we're going to display those for you here. We're going to display this infographic because we're going to go over every piece of it. Yeah, every piece of the infographic. So we shared this on the Smash Team site, smashomash.com/Smash Team. And by the way, feel free to drop us a line if you are viewing the video. Let us know what you think of how vile Twitter is. Let us know if you think Twitter is misleading investors, as it's something that we've been citing for years and years, because it's still illegal to mislead investors. There's a thing called the Securities and Exchange Commission, and they prosecute people like Martha Stewart for insider trading, but they only prosecute small fish, apparently, because big fish can avoid prosecution for investment fraud. Because reasons. So there we go. We're bringing up the infographic here created by Epoch Times, and I think I'll be able to zoom in far enough that you'll be able to actually see the writing. And it's, what is it, an unzoomable image now? This is a new one on me. Let's see if we're able to zoom in and actually read the content. We'll keep trying. Okay, there we go. Can we make it any larger? Oh, there we go. Check it out, folks. All right, we'll get it displayed on the screen one way or another. The Twitter Files. Why Twitter is so vile. And so here we go. After purchasing Twitter in October of 2022, oh my gosh. It's an unnavigable document, folks. Ugh. After obtaining Twitter in October of 2022 and making the company private, Elon, everybody's now hero for some reason, enacted a series of changes, including the release of so-called Twitter files. The files, which were provided to select journalists, shed light on the company's past dealings with governments and other organizations for censoring the content and accounts. Yes. Most of which, by the way, is still in place. So let's check the first portion here. Here's the DOJ. The FBI had its agents sweep Twitter to identify content and accounts that it tried to get removed, even though the content didn't necessarily violate any laws. The Bureau's San Francisco field office also coordinated communications with Twitter for other government agencies, especially the intelligence community. The FBI not only flagged content for removal, but also followed up with Twitter to confirm it was indeed removed. The files indicate that the FBI put pressure on Twitter to produce evidence of foreign interference, especially Russian, even when the company extensively researched the issue and only found evidence of a small number of accounts linked to Russian influence operations. Most of the suspicious content garnered little engagement on Twitter, according to the files. Why? Because the nonsense about Russian bot farms was completely inflated by the crooked media. So there you go. The free press has been dead since about 2016 in the U.S., so enjoy that. And let's go a little further. Elvis Chan, as pictured here. The head of Cyber Branch at San Francisco field office coordinated communication with Twitter leadership for the FBI, the broader intelligence community. He attended periodical meetings with tech companies and passed on to Twitter a large but unspecified number of requests for content removal and surveillance from various federal agencies, including the FBI, the Pentagon, the State Department, the CIA, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and others, according to Taibbi and the documents he published. The requests were often not much more than a list of accounts or tweets with a brief and general justification, such as a claim that the accounts were linked to Russian influence operations. CIA. For some reason it says redacted, there you go, a Twitter executive who previously worked for the CIA wrote an email suggesting that Twitter wouldn't dare to disobey a takedown request because the media fallout of the government publicly labeling the account in question as run by Russian intelligence. So let's pause for a minute. Do you think Twitter misleads investors now? How about this? The Foreign Influence Task Force, a group run by officials from the Foreign Influence Task Force, or FITF, members regularly meet with big tech executives. The FITF meetings also included briefings from other agencies, particularly the CIA. The FITF allegedly employed dozens of FBI agents to sift through social media and find content supposedly coming from malicious foreign actors and flagging such content for censorship, aka shadow bans. Have you ever heard of deboosting? Well, we have. And guess what? Twitter's deboosting features remain in effect, as stated by the current CEO of the company. Next, let's see how local police and state governments were involved. Local police. In highlighting the implication of some local police departments in censorship requests, Taibbi gave the example of the Minnesota Police Department reaching out to Twitter via the local FBI office about 2 tweets that alleged misconduct by one of the police department's officers. The tweets included the officer's badge number, photos, video, and name. The request was funneled through Elvis Chan. State governments submitted content takedown requests to Twitter via the FBI, according to Taibbi. So, do you think it might be possible that my criticism over the Pennsylvania government and the terrible decisions made by people like Tom Wolfe and Rachel Levine might have caused our account to get deboosted? Gee, who could have ever guessed? It's totally impossible that such a thing could have happened in the year 2020 when the planet's so progressive, right? Fun fact, centralization is dead. Now let's talk about the Department of Homeland Security, since there are apparently implications here as well. Oh, wait. Let's read more about the CIA. How about this one? The CIA participated in pre-election meetings with Twitter executives. Some documents indicate the agency regularly briefed Twitter on foreign threats. Others indicate the agency wanted to listen in on Twitter's communications with other government agencies. What could possibly go wrong, folks? What could possibly go wrong? What about the Department of State? Oh, that's showing up here too. What's going on with that? The Department of State's Global Engagement Center, or GEC, reached out directly to media organizations in an apparent effort to force Twitter to take action against foreign influence operations. The GEC would flag thousands of accounts to Twitter. For many of the accounts, Twitter couldn't find any association with foreign government actors, the documents indicated. Okay, that's the Department of State. What about the Department of Defense? What was the Department of Defense doing? Well, let's see. Here it is, all in one convenient infographic, which we've shared with our viewers at smashomash.com/smashteam. The Department of Defense. In 2017, the Department of Defense asked Twitter to give preferential treatment to dozens of accounts used for influence operations in Arab countries. The DoD sent censorship requests to Twitter, according to Taibbi. Well, gee, isn't that just incredible? All the way back in 2017. Who was in charge of the executive branch back in 2017? Who didn't prevent unconstitutional nationwide lockdowns and other ridiculous things that the government has no place in interfering with back in 2020? Is anybody coming to mind? What about the NSA? What have they been up to? The NSA, or National Security Agency, was one of the agencies that requested to listen in on industry calls between social media companies and the FBI. What could possibly go wrong, folks? What could possibly go wrong? What about the DNI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence? Well, that office participated in pre-election meetings with Twitter executives. Yeah, pre-election meetings. I wonder why that might be. What about the Treasury Department? Did you know that it made content-related requests to Twitter, according to Taibbi? Have you been saying something bad about the Federal Reserve? Oh, noes. Could that have maybe led to you being shadow banned on all social media? Oh my, what a preposterous idea. How could this possibly be a thing? Well, it's a thing since it's a thing. It's just some facts. Let's scroll over here. Ooh, check it out. The National The National Task Force on Election Crises. Yeah, the National Task Force. Check it out. Right there. The National Task Force on Election Crises. Oh, that sounds really official, right? The National Task Force on Election Crises is a group that was set up in March 2020 to issue recommendations how to handle elections during the COVID-19 scamdemic. It has advocated for expansion of early and mail-in voting as well as suppression of election, quote, disinformation, end quote. Its members are largely Democrat scholars, activists, and lobbyists from the areas of election advocacy and national security. Top listed members include former FBI General Counsel James Baker and former head of Justice Department's National Security Division, Mary McCord, both involved in the Russia investigation scandal. Isn't that just a fascinating coincidence, folks? I'm sure it's all on the up and up. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let's see what else could possibly go wrong. Do you really want to know the full list? I mean, I suspect I'm not going to be able to read this whole file, but this infographic is available on our website, which you can link straight to at smashomash.com. It doesn't even require you to log in. Of course, it's available on various mass media sites as well if you don't believe us. What about the Twitter files authors? 3 journalists and authors were allowed by Musk to query the company's internal files and for responsive documents such as emails and internal messages. The journalists could then take pictures or screenshots of the files. So we've got Matt Taibbi, Barry Weiss, Michael Schellenberger, Li Feng, David Zweig, and Alex Berenson, all with insider information provided directly in an objective fashion. I don't know. It looks like Twitter didn't do anything to cover up the fact that many of their activities certainly were violations of civil rights, but possibly also criminal in that they mislead investors, because publicly shared companies can't just do whatever they want because you aren't allowed to lie to your investors, you see. You can't commit fraud. So let's see what Congress was doing. Shall we? Congress seems to have served as an indirect enforcement mechanism for censorship. The Twitter documents indicate that companies' executives felt pressured to find more accounts that could be attributed to foreign influence and to comply with takedown requests in order to avoid costly new legislation and negative media coverage spurred by lawmakers. Again, what could possibly go wrong, folks? What could possibly go wrong? Senate Intelligence Committee put pressure on Twitter to remove foreign accounts, especially Russian accounts. The committee's head, Senator Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, was displeased with Twitter's inability to find substantial Russian interference in the 2016 election on the platform. The Twitter files indicate the documents reveal that the company was keen to share information with the committee. Senator Mark Warner was pressuring Twitter to come up with more evidence of Russian election interference on its platform. Warner has political incentive to keep this issue at the top of the news, according to Twitter Public Policy Vice President Colin Kroll, which he said in a September 29th, 2017 internal message. Yeah, 2017. What about the office of Adam Schiff? I know Mr. Schiff was very concerned about not enough information because, well, he spent a lot of time talking nonsense on CNN. The office of Representative Adam Schiff, Democrat from California, while he was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, requested from Twitter the removal of the Twitter account of journalist Paul Sperry. I don't even know anything about Paul Sperry, but now I want to look him up. Let us know what you find if you decide to reach Paul Sperry. If you find out what's so scary about Paul Sperry, it's spelled Sperry, if you're wondering. And let's see what the White House was up to. So White House officials sent a significant but unspecified number of censorship requests to Twitter. Some requests supposedly came during the Trump administration, but Taibbi said he couldn't find any. There were multiple examples of requests from the Biden administration, both in the Twitter files as well as the additional communications released as part of a lawsuit against the Biden administration by attorneys general of Missouri and Louisiana. The documents show that the White House was putting pressure on Twitter to censor more. What's wrong? Not enough censorship on Twitter for you folks? Oh man, better apply some more censorship. And what about Pfizer? Was Pfizer included? Well, I'm sure Pfizer's not included, right? You're not living in an ultra-corporatist wasteland of nightmarish proportions or anything, right? As one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer made the most widely used COVID-19 vaccine, which has earned the company tens of billions of dollars in 2 years. How about some information about Scott Gottlieb? Any information about that? You want to hear about Scott Gottlieb? You probably already know more than I do. So, Scott Gottlieb, Pfizer board member and head of Pfizer's Regulatory and Compliance Committee and former FDA commissioner. Probably just a coincidence. Gottlieb sent Twitter at least 3 censorship requests. One targeted a doctor who argued on Twitter that naturally acquired immunity to COVID-19 is superior to vaccination. Twitter suppressed the tweet, even though the doctor was correct. So thanks for leaving a comment, Mike, who says, thanks to Elon for bringing this to the light. Well, that's fine. He's certainly brought it to the light, and he's also brought himself into massive, massive danger because now he's running a corporation that misleads investors. So you could probably figure out how that might create some liability for Mr. Musk. Another request targeted author Justin Hart. This is under the Scott Gottlieb section, by the way. Another request targeted author Justin Hart, who argued on Twitter against school closures, pointing to extremely rare COVID-19 fatalities among children. Gottlieb sent the request shortly before Pfizer received approval for the use of its vaccine in children. Twitter didn't comply with the request. Yet another request targeted Berenson. Gottlieb claimed that Berenson's criticism of Anthony Fauci as the head of the COVID-19 response in the Biden administration was causing physical threats to Fauci. Twitter suspended Berenson's account shortly after. Gottlieb sent his request to the same Twitter official who served as the contact person for censorship requests coming from the White House. You want to hear more? Okay, that's okay. We've got more. How about the CDC? What was the CDC up to, you ask? Well, CDC guidelines on COVID-19 were used by Twitter as a measure of what could and couldn't be said on its platform regarding the pandemic. I must have mispronounced it. Yet the guidelines themselves have been guesswork to some degree, as the scientific understanding of the virus has been a matter of ongoing exploration and debate seems incomplete. Isn't that a surprise? How could debate seem incomplete? That must be impossible, folks. I mean, there's no way that the government would shut down free speech and all kinds of other rights enumerated in the Constitution. No, that couldn't be a thing. Let's see what else it says. According to reporter Zweig, which is a great name, by the way. Zweig. Go ahead, say it. According to reporter Zweig, in reporting on internal files, he, quote, found countless instances of tweets labeled as, quote, misleading and, quote, or taken down entirely, sometimes triggering account suspension simply because they veered from CDC guidance or differed from establishment views, and, quote. What about the National Security Foundation? You want to hear what they have to say? It's right there. The National Security Foundation is a federal agency that funds non-medical research. It financially supported the censorship industry. Since the start of the Biden administration, the NSF has given nearly $40 million to 42 U.S. universities to counter, quote, disinformation, end quote, or, quote, misinformation, end quote. At least one of the grants, according to the foundation, for Freedom Online, report explicitly targeted populist politicians and populist communications to determine how best to counter populist narratives. Well, apparently somebody's been overlooking the fact that censorship is dead and so is centralization. Certain companies are only moving forward like zombies, not because of any innovation. They're resting on the laurels of 20-year outdated software that barely functions on its best day. Let's see who the targeted accounts were. No, you know what? You can just figure that out yourself, since we're probably one of the targeted accounts also. Of course, there were 4 people watching that back then, and now there are 3 or something like that. And let's check and see what the leadership of Twitter was up to, shall we? Since it's one of the most vile companies in the history of mankind. I mean, I think perhaps Google is more putrid. You know, if you consider the internet the most important invention of all time, then perhaps you consider Google the evilest corporation of all time. I'll let that up to you, the viewer. And by the way, thanks for leaving comments also, Kenneth. So let's head back to the Twitter files infographic here. Let's start with Jack Dorsey, founder and CEO of Twitter until November 29th, 2021. And of course, he probably got out because he realized that he was looking at the possibility of going to prison because it's impossible to keep secrets this big. Exhibit A right on my screen. So in the first decade of the company, Dorsey maintained Twitter's dedication to free speech, but over time acquiesced on the issue. Some internal communications indicate that other executives pressured Dorsey to allow more censorship. Whoops. And let's move to Parag Agrawal. Agrawal was fired by Musk before becoming CEO. He was Twitter's chief technical officer since October 2017. Most of the incidents discussed in the Twitter files took place under his predecessor, Jack Dorsey. So, Parag Agrawal, he was promptly fired by Musk. Also, Vijay Gade was responsible for content moderator policy. Yeah, content moderation policy. She sounds like a gem. Vijay Gade, responsible for content moderation policy as part of the Site Integrity Policy Escalation Support, SIP-PES. She participated in decisions on the most controversial takedowns of the most high-profile accounts. She played a key role in blocking Twitter from Twitter the New York Post expose on the Hunter Biden laptop, according to Taibbi. Yes, Vijay Gade. She was probably at the meeting where Google, Meta, Twitter, and Apple all got together and banned Alex Jones from all of their platforms within a couple of hours of each other. Do you think they were just able to coordinate that indirectly without talking to each other about it? Google, Facebook, Apple, and Twitter. To you, corporations, accountability always comes. Continuing on, how about Lauren Culbertson? Turns out she's the head of U.S. public policy at Twitter. Culbertson summarized meetings with the White House officials in a December 2022 summary. The Biden team was not satisfied with Twitter's enforcement approach, as they wanted Twitter to do more to deplatform several accounts. Because of this dissatisfaction, we were asked to join several other calls. They were very angry in nature. Who else do you got? Well, how about Twitter Deputy General Counsel? How about that? A guy called James Baker. Maybe you've heard of him. He's apparently kind of famous. People that know things about the structure of the deep state. Because, swamp creature, swamp thing. James Baker, Twitter Deputy General Counsel. After serving as the FBI's top lawyer, Baker was Twitter's Deputy General Counsel until being fired in late 2022. In the run-up to the 2020 election, he was a member of the National Task Force on Election Crises. He personally pushed for removal of President Donald Trump from the platform. After the release of the first part of the Twitter files, reporters whom Musk entrusted with the task said they ran into problems with further searches of the documents. Then they learned that Baker was in charge of releasing his documents. Musk fired Baker shortly thereafter. At the FBI, Baker was involved in the Russia investigation scandal in which the Bureau illegally spied on a Trump campaign aide using false information fed to it by Trump's opponent, the campaign of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Who else do we got here? Some other real gems in the Twitter hierarchy. How about Yoel Roth? All right, there he is. There's Yoel Roth, who was fired by Musk, was responsible for content moderation. He sounds like an upstanding figure. And appeared sympathetic to censorship in general. He was receiving some of the requests, but his job was mainly to coordinate the broader policy. He was frequently attending meetings with the FBI, DHS, DNI, Pentagon, CIA, the State Department, and others, especially ahead of the 2020 election. He sometimes pushed back against censorship requests on the grounds that Twitter didn't have a policy that could be used as a justification. He also questioned the motivation of some government agencies and lawmakers in pushing Twitter to find more foreign influence on its platform. On his personal Twitter account, Roth made disparaging comments about Trump, saying that he and his administration were actual fascists. Let's read about the SIPPES team, shall we? I'm sure you're very interested in the structure of Twitter, right? How about the Twitter SIPPES team? It sounds perfectly fine. I mean, everything that's an acronym is perfectly harmless, right? So let's see what that's all about. The SIPPES team. This sounds great. Let's see what it is. So, Twitter's site integrity policy escalation support team, known as SIPPES, the Site Integrity Policy Escalation Support Team. What else would it be known besides the SIPPES? It was a secret executive group that included the head of legal policy and trust, Vijay Gadde, global head of trust and safety, Yoel Roth, subsequent CEO Jack Dorsey, and Parag Agrawal, as well as others. It would make decisions on high-profile accounts that were de facto excluded from regular moderation. Gee, I can't imagine. Think about that now, folks. High-profile accounts that were de facto excluded from regular moderation. What could possibly go wrong? How about artificially boosting certain accounts that support your corporatist nonsense and deboosting accounts that don't support your corporatist nonsense? Could that be a plausible explanation? I'm sure it's just a conspiracy theory, right, folks? What about Twitter safety operations? Well, let's talk about that. Twitter's safety operations department is responsible for rules-based content moderation, including removal of pornography, scams, and threats. There was at least some tension between this department and the higher-ups that made on-the-fly moderation decisions on high-profile cases, according to Taibbi. Safety operations staff, for instance, determined that Trump's January 8, 2021 tweets did not violate any rules. Their judgment was overruled by higher-ups. Last but not least, what about the SRT-GET team? I'm sure this is perfectly fine. It's the Strategic Response Team-Global Escalation Team, or SRT-GET, that was responsible for resolving moderation issues that couldn't be handled by rank-and-file moderators. The team was handling up to 200, quote, cases, and quote, per day, according to the Twitter files. So if you don't think Twitter's vile yet, maybe you think Twitter's vile now. I frankly don't care if you think Twitter is vile or not. I just wanted to talk about our website and how we decided to host this. Of course, this does not require any kind of a paid-up subscription because we include all kinds of information, even for our bronze levels. Things like disaster alerts. Of course, email notifications go out for all of that sort of stuff at smashomash.com/smash team. So just click posts and you will see all of the stuff that is typically in your feed. Of course, there's different content visible for gold members, different content visible for silver Smash Team members, and so on. So it's about time to close this thing out. I just wanted to do a brief little instantly demonetized video about how vile the Twitter files are. And, about everybody that has misconceptions about my concept of Mr. Musk. Okay, I've been calling for electric cars since the 1980s. I'm also an environmentalist, a real one, who's been studying the climate formally since the late 1980s. And let's just say this. While I don't scoff at SpaceX, being able to land rockets and reuse them is serious stuff. So is Tesla. Self-driving cars, not so serious. Basically, your self-driving car, don't do a self-driving car, folks. Because if you're letting a computer drive your car, you're just exposing yourself to the possibility of manslaughter charges. Because, anyway. So anyway, the point is, I don't scoff at Musk's achievements. However, I do scoff at Musk's screw-ups. So everybody is accountable for everything all the time. So, trying to scrub carbon out of the atmosphere, not exactly something I find myself sanctioning. Trying to reuse spacecraft, absolutely. So, you got to give up something to get something else, right? And all I can say is don't give up your credibility, because if people stop believing you, you're toast. You're never going to get that back, so don't cash in your credibility. Thanks again for leaving comments. Everybody who is able to actually see the video, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. Check our playlists, perhaps, for all kinds of content that has nothing to do with news and politics. Most of our videos are about science and technology, but since this stuff affects us directly, we like to occasionally talk about it. In the meantime, Godspeed. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back. Facts stated in this video suppressed by big tech organizations to improve your online experience. Opinions expressed in this video not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name, and Nez.